So, Yoshi kindly dropped the patch on my day off. Thank you, Yoshi. That was very kind of you. I was literally going to dinner with some friends, and then I just saw the notification of a new patch, and I was like, yes, of course. The one day I'm not at my PC, that is absolutely great. Anyway, they changed breakable souls to be less powerful in the beginning, but scale better. This makes sense because I think box runs in the start of the game was a little bit too powerful. You'd have a Calico just with a cat just running around. So this is supposed to like kind of even out. So boxes are still worth getting later in the game. Because nobody really does boxes like past 30 minutes. But box maxing is actually crazy on some heroes like Kelvin and Calico. Anyone who can like move really fast around the map. Trooper resistance near base reduced. This also makes sense. I think it was extremely hard to clear out trooper waves in the base, especially if they also had the mid-boss buff because they were stacking. So they have more health and more resistance. I fixed the bug where the urn can be invisibly carried on by hero throwing it in certain areas like the it's okay. Fixed neutrals near the base, gaining the near base trooper resist. Dude, this was driving me crazy because whenever you do the neutral camp near the base, one minion would always survive. And it kept driving me crazy. I'm glad they fixed that. Added new kiosk structure between mid lane walker and base entrance. Added wall partition structure. Improved lighting in mid-boss area. Resto shot now only procs when the center pellet hits in the case of shotguns, like how Mystic Shot works. Oh shit. Wait, so hang on. Requires a center pellet to hit the head hitbox to count. So basically, even with shotguns now, you need to like actually aim. I don't think it's necessarily a huge deal for Abrams because after you pin, you're gonna hit the headshot either way. Unless you are like playing like you have no hands. There's no way, but it is like, so did they buff anything on Resto Shot or did they just nerf it at only procs in the center pellet hits? This is gonna suck in the laning stage, I think, because yeah, for poke it's far worse, and for laning, do you guys remember in lane when you just sit under the tower with a shotgun and you just click in the general direction of a hero and it heals you? Okay, so that's definitely worse. But either way, Fleetfoot got a huge change. Its duration is increased, its cooldown is longer, no longer gets health, but now it gets bullet resistance and slow resistance. Holy. The first thing I want to say is that this thing is probably because of all the Spellslinger builds. So everybody was buying Spellslinger. So for those who don't know, Spellslinger is an item that if you use an item or an ability, you get more fire rate and reload speed, and it stacks 6 times. And it has a 10-second cooldown. So as long as you were spamming Fleetfoot, you could permanently keep your Spellslinger stacks at max, which I don't think is intended, which is probably why they changed this. Giving it this much slow resistance, I'm not so sure about, but it's going to be even better for Warden now, but it's definitely a nerf to the Spellslinger builds, which makes sense because everybody was just going mouse 1 carry and just buying Fleetfoot and Spellslinger. Melee charge fixed, always giving more damage to objectives. Bone. Ooh, wait, this is interesting. So previously they nerfed Headhunter pretty hard, and then they added Spirit scaling to Headhunter instead, which also didn't really make sense because not many Spirit builds were actually building Headhunter. Now it's scaling with boons. So boons is basically hero levels. So instead of being like too powerful power spike early in the game, it scales with boons over time. So it means that it's going to be better late game, but worse early game, which I agree with because Headhunter used to be like an item you would like buy in the lane. Like you buy it as a first item. And to me, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that a 3k item is so like overwhelmingly powerful that you want to just rush it in the lane. So this is a good change to like make the item just as powerful, but kind of lower the early game damage. It's similar to what they've done with the gun damage of a lot of heroes. They've like lowered the base gun damage, but increased the amount of gun damage they get per boons. That's the same thing. Cultist sacrificed. Oh, thank God. Out of combat regen reduced. Weapon damage as an NPC reduced. Bullet resist reduced. Fire rate reduced. Yeah, so they're okay. So they're basically taking care of an issue that was pretty like messed up in my opinion. Both these items were items you would just rush in the laning stage. It felt very unintuitive. It felt like none of the other 800 items really mattered. And it made the laning stage very stale because no one's going to aggress for a fight when you've saved up 2,000 souls. You're just going to wait until they buy Headhunter or Cultist and then fight. This nerf makes perfect sense to me. They're just like making them both scale by boons. I think this is a better design philosophy in general, and I'm glad to see that Valve are moving towards it. Just because like Scaling for boons essentially just means that the more you level up, the more powerful your item will get to. Boons are just levels. So whenever you hear that pling and you get a new ability point, that's a boon. I don't know why they just don't call it levels, because, you know, why not? Blood Tribute small buff. Not that many people buy this item, so that makes sense. Express shot, fixed shotguns with express shot instantly buying buildups. Okay. Crippling no longer has a 3-second cooldown. Oh. So better for team fights, because before in team fights you would basically just be able to apply the debuff to one target every 3 seconds. It's a pretty good change. This is just a component matchup, that's fine. A Crushing Fist fixed to because it was giving 25% more damage. Oh my god, yes. Wait, this patch is just glorious. Healing Nova is now a tier 3 item. Base heal increased from 260 to 325. Heal now scales with boons rather than spirit power. Wow. Yes, so they have actually dealt with the 3 most annoying laning items. The 3 most annoying laning items have all been dealt with. I hated playing against Healing Nova Rush because they would just constantly be full health. I hated playing against Cultist Sacrifice and Headhunter Rush because they just wouldn't fight. This is huge. Interesting that it scales with boons rather than spirit power. This is definitely... I'll explain why I think this is good. So Healing Nova is supposed to be a support item. Stacking spirit power isn't necessarily a support playstyle. In a lot of cases, support players, they have a lot of active items and they're often vitality. You have Rescue Beam, you have Healing Tempo, like you have Healing Nova, you have Divine Barrier. None of these items really give you spirit power. So it's kind of counterintuitive that Healing Nova originally scaled with spirits, because if it's intended for supports, then it should scale with boons instead, because supports will get the same amount of boons because they're leveling up from having souls. They just don't have the same spirit power investment. I think they're like, I really love what they've done with these items. It makes like perfect sense in terms of like giving items like a specific identity and an archetype. Like for instance, like why should a full spirit damage carry have an insane amount of healing from Healing Nova? So, I mean, this just had to happen. Healing Nova was way too good. In the last Fight Night tournament, we saw matches with 12 Healing Novas in the early game, and that just can't happen. Counterspell duration increased from 0.8 to 1 second. This is actually a pretty big deal, considering that like you have to alleviate for like a certain amount of reaction time and stuff. A 1 second spell parry, that is actually pretty good. If you play against a Bebop, just buy this. Spellbreaker, fixed it affecting Lady Guy's solo chains, damn it. Siphon Bullet cooldown increased, this makes sense. Everybody was rushing Siphon Bullets. Hopefully this will make it in a spot where certain heroes buy it when they have a nice scaling opportunity, but not everybody buys it. Superior cooldown, okay, that's fine. Not a big deal. Tank Buster, nerf, well not nerf, just bugs. Decay no longer procs item effects like Affliction. Oh, this is a big one. So the reason why this is a big one is basically 2 things. First of all, Spirit Burn's damage threshold was increased from 4 to 500. And the other thing was that a lot of people would buy Decay and Spirit Burn together as a consequence, because it was hard for some heroes to proc Spirit Burn. So you would buy Decay, and the Decay would tick while you're dealing damage to them. And then when you're just using your normal spells, at some point, you would do 500 damage within 5 seconds and proc Spirit Burn. In some cases, Decay would actually proc Spirit Burn alone, which also means that you would also get max escalating exposure stacks. So you actually had games where you could put a Decay on someone, they start taking escalating stacks, and then they start burning, and then they're maxed escalation while they're taking Spirit Burn, just because you clicked the Decay on them. This is a nerf that is pretty big, but it makes sense. Decay is supposed to be an anti-heal, anti-tank item. It's not supposed to be like an enabler of all your other items. That is like something you should do with your abilities. Lightning Scroll bug fix. Balance Spirit bonus increased from 10 to 13%. Okay. I still think this item is kind of ass. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw it at first, I was like, ooh, interesting. They're like giving it a lot of extra percentage spirit. But then I thought about it. And realistically, most heroes will have 100 to 150 spirit, unless you're Grey Talon who gets 5 spirit per ult kill. So essentially, you're never going to get more than 15 maybe spirit power from this. That if you look at the other spirit items, I don't think that's really a lot to write home about. I don't think that's like a game changer Unless it's like the last spirit item you buy, then maybe I could understand it. But usually when you're at that point, meaning like 60k soul and like 40, 50-minute games, there are usually better items to buy. There are usually active items like Leech, there's like Unstoppable, there's like Spellbreaker. I just don't see this item in a build unless it's like extremely greedy, because you have Spirit Burn, you have Mystic Reverb, you have Vortex Web, you have like so many really strong spirit items that I would rather buy even for pure spirit builds. I don't see the vision with this one. All right, Vortex Web. Just to cast Dark to be more similar to other grenades. Okay, nice. Oh, fix the split shot bug. Okay, that's good, because this was doing like immense amount of damage. All right, lowered Abrams' health a little bit. Increased his Inferno resilience a little bit. It's now 3% more when it's maxed. One of the two, today we're gonna cook on some Abrams builds. One of the two builds is a green Abrams. We're gonna try to see if we can get extremely tanky because of this change. It's not a huge change, but it might matter if we go for greens. And then they fixed some network related issues with shoulder charge. Hopefully this makes it more consistent. One thing that is very interesting here, I heard that quite a lot of people were sad about the shoulder charge changes because now the cooldown is tier 3 instead of tier 2. But this does open up some new possible solutions, which we are working on today on stream. I will say that Abrams was definitely very strong, and maybe I shouldn't have, my tier list spot might have been questionable. I think he's stronger than B tier after playing him more myself, but we got to rage bait a little bit. I'm just joking. One really interesting thing, if you look at this, is like first you see, okay, the charge wall stun went from 0.85 to 0.6, but now tier 2 is changed to 0.45 seconds. So that means that the total charge stun against the wall time now is actually 0.20. I mean, we've gone from 0.85 to 1.05 seconds. Now, why is this a big deal? That is what I'm going to show you guys today. I am working on some tech. I think that you can do Express Shot Echo Shard. Because that extra 0.2 seconds, it should give you time to charge, heavy melee, Express Shot, 3 shotgun shots, Echo Shard, and then pin again. Yes, the plus 45 was on tier 3 before, but there was a problem. Nobody ever picked it, right? That was the issue. Because, and this is where I think Abrams needed a nerf too, where even if you played a full-on melee charge build with Abrams, you would max your 1 first. Now, personally, I think that's a problem. I don't think that's my same issue I have with Bebop too. Why does Bomb Bebop max hook and ult before he maxes his bomb? That's like, in my head, that's counterintuitive, and that creates like a problem with the whole build strategy. Whereas like, if you play ult 7, you max your ult. Makes perfect sense. It's a press 4 build, you max your ult. If you play shoulder charge, pin, melee damage Abrams, why the fuck do you max charge like 30 minutes in? Do you see what I'm saying? So I think this change is to be like, okay, well, if you want to commit to the whole like charge combo thing, you gotta actually go for it. So having the cooldown being tier 3 sucks, and it probably means that you can't greed to pick max Siphon Life, because I think straight up that Abrams needs to get his max ult sooner rather than later to be more helpful with mid boss. Because it's like one of the best ways to guarantee a mid boss. You're unstoppable, you have an AoE stun into an unstoppable punch after. I feel like it's kind of grief now, unless you're going for like a Gubami kind of vibe. I do think that now you kind of have to choose. And that's a nerf to Abrams, but that also is just a nerf that every hero pretty much is already getting. They did the same thing with Shiv, where like a lot more of the power of Shiv's ultimate came in the actual upgrades. Because there was also situations where people would just get so many benefits from the ult by just maxing dash, for instance. Even though I will say one thing I still don't like about Shiv is that even with a max dash build, you still max ult first. So it's like, there's these kind of like weird things where a lot of heroes that are really strong have these like weird synergies with their abilities, where even though your build is like specifically designed to do one thing, it makes more sense to max another ability. That's personally something I'm not a huge fan of, but at least this seems like they're doing something about it. Lowered cooldown on Hyper Beam. Okay, ult Bob. Might actually be decent now. I fixed some issues with lag compensation and hook. Okay. All right, what are they doing to Calico? They're making her easier to catch. I don't know if you guys have seen, but the freaking cat form has been so lethal this previous patch. The cat max in Calico has been so difficult to deal with. So it's nice to see that they make some adjustments here. Reduced duration, so it's harder to box max. And this is also pretty big because this is like how long the window is before you can cast your cat form again. And I wonder if this is long enough so that she can't cast cat form out of her ult. Because what a lot of Calicos would do, they would ult and they would like not take damage for long enough so they could instantly cat form out of it. And so this, even though it's just 1 second, this is actually kind of a big deal. And same with this. Fixed curse and stuns not interrupting Ava. Wait, does this mean you can stun her out of cat form? Does this mean that stuns remove cat form? I'm confused. Similar to Ice Path and Flame Dash. Great Talon, Spirit Snare radius increased, guided owl duration increased, cooldown decreased. Oh, wait. Buff to guided owl, okay. Okay, wait, what did they do to fucking Holiday? Yeah, thank you. It's the most broken hero in the game. Thank God they gave her 5 seconds long on her ult. That should put her right where she's supposed to be. That should deal with all the problems you have with the Holiday for the first 30 minutes of the game where she just one-shots you in the lane, one-shots you in the mid-game. Oh yeah, and one-shots you in the late game too. Great change, great change. She really fixed that. Ooh. Hey, look at that. We got some skill-based afterburn build-up. Let's go. Inferno's afterburn headshot build-up rate improved by 10%. Okay. Fixed turret bugs. Base gun damage. Increased Scorn Spirit scaling. Okay. I have Fook with it. Pocket, flying cloak, spirit damage. Scaling increased. Okay. Oh, here, what did it do? Ooh, this makes sense. Ult 7 was pretty popular these days. Alt fire base damage reduced, rage per weapon reduced. Ooh, okay. Dude, it's hard to have max rage on... Dude, you know why you need to kill a Shiv, guys? Because it takes him 5 minutes to build his rage back up. So when he's jungling, he's gonna hate himself. Vexing bolt radius increased. Vexing bolt radius fixed to scale with radius increase now. Ooh, Rabbit Hex cooldown. Hello? Rabbit Hex cooldown reduced? Who asked for that? Goo ball reduction, makes sense. Warden bullet damage per boon reduced. Last time interrupt cooldown increased. And ooh, Warden and okay. You know what? Damn, this is a good patch. It's not like a huge, like, there's not a lot of new content, but overall, like, this is like they've dealt with so many issues people had with Cultist Sacrifice, with Headhunter, with Healing Nova, all the items that made the laning stage really boring. They've slightly dealt with Warden and Wraith. They've slightly dealt with Ult 7. They dealt with Calico, which was a problem as well. Wow. Dude, this is... Wow. Okay. All right.